Last match of the day. Man, I am tense at this moment. I am now 9-5. Not related to any Dolly Parton song. 9-5 is my record, and I need to win that last match, the 10th win, to be able to qualify for the next event. Not just qualify for the next event by itself, but also propel me into a good position to maybe qualify for the World Championship, if I can qualify for all three set championships this season. So this is a huge match. And, you know, I'm off a small winning streak here, and I really hope I can keep it going here. I'm up against Toru Inoue from Japan, from the Japanese super team. We already saw my match against Yuma Koizumi just a couple rounds earlier, where I did lose to this exact blue-red Epiphany deck. And now I'm up against it again. I have to try and win this time. Toru is a player who has been on the PT for quite a while. I know that I played against him at a PT in Sydney in 2016. So this is definitely a very seasoned player, and I really hope that I can beat him again this time. You know, we already saw this, so I'm just quickly gonna go over it, but with Lear, Goldspan Dragon, and Hullbreaker Horror, there's like a lot of threat diversity, and I'm just gonna correct this this hat here. There's a lot of threat diversity, and a lot of different like sweepers and removal spells that I need to keep in mind and play around. It's pretty difficult to play around a list that has so many one-offs here. The trade-off is that they're not as all-in on the combo, only 3 Epiphany, only 3 iteration. And post-board, we are going to go up to 4 Smoldering Egg, which means that I really want to have my Blizzard Brawl at the ready so I can defeat the Eggs. Because that's definitely a way that the Epiphany deck can beat you, especially when they're on the play, because then it's really hard to raise the Egg in any fashion. That you just absolutely have to remove it. Other than that, nothing to say. Then let's just check how it goes. All right, deep breath. I do lose the die roll here. I mean, at this point, I'm just used to it, right? I've got 1-7 in die rolls. Whatever, we can win through it. So okay, I'm gonna go back just a second there, because there's actually something really important going on. Toru starts with a mountain and go. This means that he leaves up Spikefield Hazard, of which there is 4 in the deck list, so it's a pretty common play to have turn 1. I only have 1 target for Spikefield Hazard in my deck, and that is Ascendant Plague Leader, which is also a card in my hand. Now, the first thing I do here is that you can actually check to see if your opponent has Spikefield Hazard, because Spikefield Hazard says target any target, not just a creature. So that means that in the beginning of combat, if Toru has the Spikefield Hazard, he will get priority. And what I can do here is that I can just skip to the second main phase to check if he gets priority in the beginning of combat. If he does, I know that he has Spikefield Hazard. It doesn't necessarily dictate my play, but at least I can consider things from there. Because if it just passes immediately, I know he doesn't have it, unless he is doing some trickery with the stops, which I'm not expecting my opponent to do right away, but some people will. It's definitely in the range of people to do. And you actually should like practice your, you know, arena stop setting and so on if you're playing at high level. And another thing you should practice is get in the habit of doing this. It doesn't work if it just said target a creature. Like for instance, you can't check if your opponent has Frostbite this way, because then he won't get priority as there's no creature in play. So it's effectively disguised that way. And I do pass here to the second main phase. Obviously, this is, you know, this is extra speed. Actually, hold on. I think I have it a little bit too high. So you wouldn't necessarily notice it. But okay, so my opponent has Spikefield Hazard. Second thing is that, do I care? Well, first of all, it's not actually guaranteed, right? Because again, Toru could be very smart and put stops the right places. Which definitely, if I was playing the Epiphany deck, I would put a stop at the beginning of combat, or just go into full control whenever I have mana open. So I don't know for sure, but it's pretty likely that he has Spike Field Hazard here. Do I want to trade my Pack Leader for Spike Field Hazard? Well, the thing is that since I have no other targets for the Spike Field, it's going to trade for my Pack Leader one way or another. The thing is that I know that this turn, it's not going to impact my opponent's mana to play the Spike Field Hazard because it's readily available. However, maybe there'll be a later turn where it won't matter for me to pay that extra 1 mana. Like, for instance, you can see that I go Sculptor into like Old Growth Troll plus Pack Leader or something. Maybe it won't matter for me to use that extra mana, but it will matter for my opponent. Like, let's say they want to go Divide by 0 on my Old Growth Troll and then go Unexpected Windfall on their next turn. Then in that scenario, they won't actually have the 1 mana to also Spikefield Hazard my Pack Leader unless they use a Treasure or something. So in that way, I actually get like 2 damage out of my Pack Leader, or make them at least like spend their mana in an awkward time where they wouldn't otherwise do it. So essentially, by dancing around the fact that I know they have a card that's only trading for 1 of my cards, I can dictate when I want them to spend their mana, and hopefully do that in a way that's awkward for them. That is more awkward than just playing a turn 1. There's also another reason with specifically Pack Leader, is that at some point maybe I get a Chariot into play, and I can just play the Pack Leader and it'll come into play as a 3/2 and be safe from the Spikefield Hazard. So I think the fact that that's also the case means that it's pretty clear that you're not supposed to play your Pack Leader on turn 1 in a scenario like this. Also, I have plenty of lands, that's another thing too, right? Or if I had 2 Pack Leaders, I would have just played out the first one so that it could get hit by Hazard and I could play out the second. But since I have a lot of lands, I don't have a second Pack Leader, and I'm pretty sure that I'll find a spot to be able to play out my Pack Leader without it impacting me much in a later turn. I'm just not going to play it out right now. Okay, that was a long explanation for why I'm passing on turn 1, but I think it's pretty important to understand the dynamics that goes on here. So, opponent just plays a blue land and passes back. Maybe? Oh, actually, I think they're considering a Foretell here. Which would make sense, especially if they have like Jawari Disruption. That's when you really need to consider, do you go for the Foretell or not? And they do go for it here. I draw a Werewolf Pack Leader. Alright, well, actually, since, we're going into Divide by 0 turn, that's the turn where I want to play 2 things. So I'm gonna play out my Sculptor of Winter so that I can more effectively double spell next turn, rather than playing Pack Leader this turn. Also have the option to like draw a 4-drop and just play it immediately if I want to do that. Right, untapped land here. So we know that this is the Divide by 0 turn. And obviously, if I can, I'm also going to try and play around Jawari Disruption, so that if I can make it as awkward for my opponent to spend their mana. So ideally, I don't want to play Old Growth Troll this turn, because if I play Old Growth Troll and it gets hit by Divide by 0, yes, I can double spell with a Pack Leader as well, but I don't get to get in 2 damage. So since I'm expecting a Divide by 0, I'd rather just develop things that aren't Old Growth Troll this turn. So I lead off with Pack Leader here. Try and see if they bite with the Divide by 0. Because if they do now, I can just replay the Pack Leader. So there's actually like a lot of important nuance in the exact sequencing of this turn as well. My opponent still can't Jawari Disruption it because I have the Sculptor of Winter up. That's also worth noting. But I am planning to play Pack Leader, attack with Sculptor of Winter. Alright, so that resolved. The thing that is awkward for him if he has the Divide by 0 is that now he's playing into Snakeskin Veil. So I'm going to start by attacking here. It's like now my opponent can't, if they have the Divide by 0, I am going to get in 2 damage. They can't just justify bouncing the Sculptor. And now I'm going to play Pack Leader. This can get hit by Jawari Disruption, which, I don't know, maybe there's an argument to play that before attacking, but I also think the fact that if I play this before attacking and then attack for 2, my opponent will just Divide by 0, bounce my Sculptor, and I'll miss out on 2 damage. Alright, so that resolved as well. So, right, here's the Behold the Multiverse. And yeah, I mean, so this lines up where the opponent gets to use their Spikefield Hazard as well. I was expecting this Foretell card to be Epiphany, but it is Behold the Multiverse. And now I'm assuming that my Pack Leader is dead. Yes. That's alright though. You know, nothing really lost compared to playing at turn 1 there. Like, if you compare everything, right? You know, they just got to spend 1 mana when it was free for them to kill my 1-drop when I played it when it was free for me. So like, it doesn't matter if that exchange happened on turn 1 or on turn 3. It just happened to happen on turn 3. That's alright. That's also, by the way, why I was willing to play the pack leader into Jawar Disruption. Because I knew my opponent had Spikefield Hazard. So they probably don't want to Jawar Disruption a card they can trade for with something else. Alright, well, now we're leading into the turn where that's the unexpected windfall turn. I don't have a big play to really punish them here. I don't have a Chariot or a Oddity, but I can still go Old Growth Troll plus Sculptor of Winter. Again, I'm trying to like conceal information a little bit by playing the Troll first and then playing Sculptor afterwards. But at least I am still double spelling on a turn where they play Divide by 0. So, okay, I am not too surprised to see this, but I'm pretty happy that it's not Unexpected Windfall. That's a card I definitely don't want to battle against there. And they do get the Sciences for extra lands. Playing out Sculptor. And here's a pause, which might signal Fading Hope, by the way. But also, it could signal that my opponent just is putting proper stops because they noticed that I did the trick on turn 1. So whenever you get the... Okay, well... So Burn Down the House means that... Okay, basically, when they have a stop there, you could think that that's, you know, means that they have Fading Hope, but it could also mean that since I showcased my opponent that I'm willing to, like, read something into their stops on turn 1, he's got to be more careful by setting stops, so I can't be as sure about my reads later in the game. However, this Burn Down the House means that if he did have Fading Hope, he wouldn't have cast it anyway, so now it's definitely still a possibility that there was Fading Hope in hand. Anyway, that was not good for me to see. I would have definitely preferred if my troll got if my troll was in play when that got cast, but you know, it is all right. We're gonna play it out here, and I mean, with the Fading Hope potential here, like that's not great for me. So I'm just hoping that that was a bluff. Reduce the Environmental Sciences cast now. And I don't know, maybe my opponent's gonna be a little bit out of gas, or not have quite the right cards to deal with, like my, you know, troll Faces Haven. Like these are pretty relentless, relentless cards that are not easy to deal with. Drawing a Werewolf Pack Leader here is really awkward. The fact that I can't double spell here because Faces Haven prevents me from having 5 green is kind of awkward. So I'm just gonna play out my troll here, hope for the best. It doesn't Behold the Multiverse. I mean, I'm happy that it's not Unexpected Windfall, because that would really set up for a Galvanic Iteration into Epiphany turn here, but I also don't quite have enough pressure. Like, I can not even kill my opponent next turn, even if they have nothing, and there's a lot of things they can have, which makes it a lot harder, so certainly not too thrilled about my position here. Opponent is in the tank now again. Right, just passes. I'm definitely thinking Hullbreaker Horror and stuff like that. But if they have Hullbreaker Horror here, it's actually kind of nice, because I get to attack with everything. Horror comes down, blocks something, and then I use Blizzard Roll to fight it. Obviously my opponent can still take the damage. Alright, Faces Haven is a nice draw. Well, it's not that good of a draw, but it means that I can at least activate my other Haven and still play Werewolf Pack Leader post-combat. In case they have a very interactive hand, that's a nice sequence. Alright, so no Hullbreaker Horror, no interaction, and this is something my opponent gets to do. Like, they just, you know, if they try and go, if they have one interaction spell here and go for it, they're gonna lose to Snakeskin Veil. So they're just not gonna take that risk. They're just gonna take the damage and go to 1, which is really awkward, right? Because I would have liked to just like, get in that one more point of damage. Could have mattered a lot here. And force my opponent into maybe doing something they wouldn't otherwise too. Anyway, so now they actually can play Hullbreaker Horror and untap with it, but instead they're going Galvanic Iteration into, I assume, Unexpected Windfall. Yeah, I'd even had the Demon Bolt, just decided not to cast it. Like, they had the, Iteration Windfall, Demon Bolt and didn't go for it. That probably means I'm dead here, right? Because they have so much mana now, and they definitely have an Epiphany at this point. So they're definitely taking at least 2 turns now. Oh, there's another Galvanic, so I'm assuming that that's gonna get flashed back as well. And so now, if they have an Epiphany, that's 3 turns in a row, and that should kill me. So yeah, even though they're at 1 life, it doesn't actually matter. I'm dead to like a Spikefield Hazard at this point, and also dead to a Hullbreaker Horror. So yeah, always greet the Hullbreaker Horror. It's just good and nice courtesy here. We're going into sideboarding. I've already played this exact matchup once, so I just copied my sideboard strategy from that one, where I bring in 1 Unnatural Growth on the play. Kind of mixing it up between my strategy against the Hullbreaker Horror Leer versions and Smoldering Egg versions. Because against Smoldering Egg, I want Blizzard Ball. Against the big blue cards, I want Unnatural Growth. But yeah, I've already explained my sideboarding a lot here. And that's just what I'm gonna do here. Not much to say. I will note that after this game, I realized there's something wrong about my sideboarding, and come up with a new plan. But we'll see that when it happens. All right. Down a game though. I mean, I did lose the die roll, so I kind of expected to lose game 1, and then like you really just like need to win game 2 and 3. So winning game 2, not that hard usually, because you're on the play with like all your Snakeskin Veils and it's post board. But winning game 3 on the draw might take a little luck. That's gonna be the really hard one. That's when you really need your sideboard cards to come through. All right, Toru finished sideboarding, so we are ready to roll here. Game 2, I go first. I have a 1-drop, I have a 2-drop. I'm gonna keep this hand. It's kind of awkward with the Haven and the Troll, as it often is, but we're gonna accept that here. Okay, so Toru rolled to 6, finish putting on bottom, and yeah, I'm definitely just gonna lean on Pack Leader here. This is different, by the way, than game 1, because I don't know if they have Spikefield Hazard, right? That's the only reason why I would consider holding it, is if I know they have the card. Here, they might as well not have it, they might not have the red mana turn 1, maybe they'd rather play a tap land. A billion reasons for why it's not... why I wouldn't hold it back here, just because it dies to Spikefield Hazard. Anyway, drawing another Pack Leader here is interesting, because normally I would have just gone for Ranger class this turn, but now actually I think I like just playing a second Pack Leader and a Mammoth to potentially have Ogre's Troll next turn here, or if I draw like a Snakeskin Veil, I can leave that up. This play is risky against Cinderclasm, but my opponent only has 1 Cinderclasm, so I'm gonna take that risk here. Also, the Cinderclasm will be pretty good later against, like my Ranger classes plus Pack Leaders. Like, it's gonna be pretty likely that card's gonna be good. So I'm hoping to not see a Cinderclasm right now. Please. There was some hovering over my card there. Did you notice that? Hovering over the mountain, hovering over the Pack Leader. That makes me think it's a small Q, but that my opponent has a removal spell here and they're not using. Potentially a Spikefield Hazard. So the reason why you wouldn't use it here is if you have a Jawari Disruption. So even though they play Jawari as a land here, I'm gonna add just a slight bit more value, just turning the knob a little bit in favor of playing around Jawari Disruption. Not gonna like, if I don't have a good line that plays around it, I'm not gonna, do something bad. But for instance, this turn here, I could play Ranger class and Mammoth as a tap land. I think that's the obvious line here, because that lets me cast Ogre's Troll next turn. But actually, with that information given, I think I might go for Ranger class here. Anyway, I'm gonna start by attacking, because if they go Spikefield Hazard on my Pack Leader now, then, which would be weird, right? Because you want to play around Snakeskin Veil, and they just take the damage as expected. All right. I'm, by the way, in full control here to bluff my own Snakeskin Veil. As I mentioned, like, you know, when playing these tournaments, be very careful about the arena stops and tells and so on. All right, I tank for a little bit and decide to go for Ranger class here. Presumably blanking a Drawer Disruption. If we see a Spikefield Hazard now, yeah, now I have a full tell, right? Now I know they have Drawer Disruption in hand, because otherwise they would have just fired that off on their own turn. No reason not to do that. So that's going to be very important info going forward here, is that I'm going to try to play around Drawer Disruption the best I can here. So I draw another pack leader. All right. That's very interesting here. And since I also want to play around Divide by Zero the best I can, if I just play a Ranger class here, that's a really good target for Divide by Zero. So what I'm going to do instead here, if I just activate Ranger class, I can attack with both of these and put a counter on the Wolf token. Notably, that's very important here, because I don't think my opponent has Fading Hope. I think then Fading Hope would have been cast on my Wolf token last turn, but they could have Divide by Zero, and Divide by Zero can't target tokens. So if I provide pressure by pumping my token here, I don't give my opponent a good divide turn. And then I can play my pack leader, which, you know, they can divide, they can even Drawer Disruption it, but I don't care that much about it. I could also play my pack leader pre-combat to protect it from Drawer Disruption. But again, then I will lose out on 2 damage, because my opponent will just bounce this pack leader. Or potentially even bouncing my Ranger class. That's not unreasonable. Alright, that works. And I do get in for damage here. Opponent too afraid of casting Divide into my Snakeskin Veil, which is why we attack first. And so now I play my pack leader. Opponent can Drawer Disruption it, but then they don't get to cast a Divide, so it's kind of an awkward turn. Maybe they want to get something like Environmental Sciences. So trying really hard to just like navigate, you know, small edges around the probable disruption they could have here. And although I'm putting a lot of pressure on my opponent, like drawing these pack leaders is great. It really showcases how good that card is in the matchup for playing around all their like bounce spells and so on while still putting on pressure. Because they're 9 life here and I have 5 power in play, plus my Ranger class. Alright, so they do Divide by Zero and get Sciences. I play a Mammoth as a land here, so I can play Troll next turn. Presumably. Alright, another land here. Alright, the Wolf token has been dealt with, but Environmental Sciences is not cast here. So once again, they're leaving up Drawer Disruption, even though they should be aware by now that I'm playing around the card and not letting them cast it. But maybe Toru just felt like he couldn't let me resolve a Chariot or an Oddity here, which I think is reasonable, but the issue is that if I have a 5th land, I can play around Jawari anyway. So honestly, I think there is a lot of merit to just casting your Sciences there and tapping out of Disruption. Just acknowledging that you're not going to be able to cast it. Anyway, here, drawing another Old Growth Troll. So I'm just going to start by attacking with Pack Leader and then let my play dictate what happens after that. One way that my opponent could get back in this here, if I like develop, you know, I could go like Ranger class and Ascendant Pack Leader and like go really wide. But then I'm pretty bad against both Syndiclasm and especially also Burn Down the House. So I'm gonna elect to go with Old Growth Troll here. Still can't get killed by, still can't get countered by Jawari Disruption. And means that if there is a Burn Down the House, I'm in a better spot. And also I'm, you know, representing lethal still. Very important. And I'm actually, you know, if my opponent just goes, if my opponent just has something like an Abrade or a Syndiclasm or something, I can actually go like Ranger class, level that up next turn and put both counters on my Troll for lethal. That's something that could happen. If my opponent goes for, yeah, let's say Abrade or Syndiclasm main phase to play around Snakeskin Veil. So once again, Got to waste that mana, and feeling real smart over here. Right, is there a burn down the house? There are 2 burn down the house in the deck post-war, so that's kind of what I'm expecting at this point. Lear definitely doesn't do it here. We'll just have to block. Alright. Sciences is cast. Going out to 8 life and some removal spell. Alright, just for telling. But with Ranger class, I just have lethal in play. And now I chose Snakeskin Veil, so it's safe against the Fading Hope. So no reason for me to do anything here. I can just attack and put a counter on my pack leader and get in for 8. So I don't really know what that was about, putting themselves dead on board, but yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't actually change in any way, right? If you don't have a play, you don't have a play. Anyway, this is when I realized, I was thinking about this during the game. Because of the way I want to play around Divide by Zero, like on turn 4, I don't want to play my Chariot. I don't want to play it into the War Disruption or like Divide by Zero. Or even turn 3 if I have a Sculptor of Winter and they have 3 mana open. I just want to be able to double spell as much as possible. So in reality, I should be going even lower on my big cards. I should definitely not have the Unnatural Growth in my deck, because that's too expensive. And even Chariot, like I just don't want too many 4-drops. You don't need that many copies. And the Oddity is just a better 4-drop. It's better against sweepers, and it just like, you know, hits harder and faster. And I realized that actually Outland Liberator is pretty good. Because Outland Liberator means that like, my opponent can't foretell and can't like just pass the turn, otherwise it's gonna flip. So I actually think this is a pretty good sideboard card in the matchup, and definitely if I were to like work more on Mono Green going forward, I would entertain that idea more of having more Outland Liberators in the sideboard to bring in against this deck, potentially even replacing the Ranger classes in the main deck. I don't think that's unreasonable. Alright, so we're bringing in a bunch of cheap things. Brought in the 4th Blizzard Brawl to kill a Smoldering Egg. And right at the end here, I realized that I also want Inscription to kill the egg. Oh, by the way, I also caught a Mammoth. Instead of cutting any of the untapped lands, I realized that actually drawing multiple Mammoths when I want to play them out as lands more than creatures, because, you know, I want to double spell. I don't want to play 3-drop. It's just kind of awkward that the land is tap land that doesn't help me Blizzard Brawl when I want to. So this is gonna be my deck. Boarding up 1 Ranger class, probably fine. It's not as good on the draw. Alright, so we're gearing up here for the game 3. I'm gonna be on the draw, so pretty tight here. I'm really, you know, at the edge of my seat. I feel like I, you know, was pretty much in control of that last game, and I really just like need to like keep that control going into this last game here. Alright, so Toru plays first, and this is an excellent hand here. Double Werewolf Pack Leader with Snakeskin Veil. It might flood out though if I'm not careful, so definitely have to think about this right. But the fact that I can let my first pack leader die and then maybe protect the second one is kind of neat. So for a hand that doesn't have a sentient pack leader, this is you know, I wouldn't say as good as it gets, but at least pretty solid. Also noting, Toru took like a lot of time thinking about his mulligan and then decided to keep. Let on Spike Fertilizer. Drew another Snakeskin Veil. Okay. That is gonna be interesting. Now, this was a really fast turn from Toru here. So, Toru spent a lot of time thinking about his 7-card hand, decided to keep it, and then leads on red land, red land. This is, by the way, the red-black pathway. Dispatch for like 1 black sideboard card. So, normally, if you have a blue source, you play it now to bluff the War Disruption, even if you don't have it. So, the fact that the fact that he doesn't play a blue land here, and that he was tanking on his opening hand, means I don't think he has blue mana in his hand right now. So what could make you keep a hand that doesn't have blue mana? You probably have removal spells, right? Probably something like a Braid. I think a Braid is actually the only card that would make me, as if I was an Epiphany player, that would make me want to keep a hand without blue mana. There's no burning hands in the list. So it's only their Braids. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here, because none of the other removal spells are going to be good enough against, like, if I lead on, for example, a Pack Leader, that's what my opponent's thinking about here, right? You know, if they just have like a Cinderclasm, that's not going to be good enough. If they have a Demon Bolt, he could have had a Demon Bolt. That would also be a reason to keep the hand, but then you would have foretold it here on turn 2. So the fact that he doesn't do that means I'm pretty sure he has his one-off Braid in his hand and doesn't have blue mana. What does that mean for me? Well, look at my hand now. I have a lot of lands and Snakes and Veils and Pack Leaders. If I just run out my Pack Leader here, it's just going to get abraded. I'm 90% sure that's going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. And since I think my opponent doesn't have blue mana, so normally the punishment for waiting here is that if I wait, I'm just playing right into their Divide by 0 by not playing out as many spells as possible. But I don't think there's blue mana necessarily. And there's a lot of blue lands that come into play tapped here, at least like Jabbar Disruption and Hall of the Storm Giants. So no guarantee that my opponent will have blue mana next turn, even if they draw a blue land. So actually, I think I'm not that likely to get punished for just not playing my Pack Leader this turn. And then next turn I can play it with Snakeskin Veil up to protect it from that Abrade that I think my opponent is holding. So I'm gonna tank a little bit here and then pass. This obviously gives Toru a little bit of tell that I'm intentionally not playing my creature. I wonder if I could have in any way like thought more, like made the thought decision quicker or did it during his turn so that he wouldn't get as much info. But honestly, he would probably figure it out anyway. When next turn I play a 2-drop with a mana up. Okay, so here's a foretold card. So no land though, no blue land. So I'm feeling like pretty, justified here that I was right. This card here, worst case scenario is Demon Bolt, and since my opponent missed his land here, I'm gonna assume that it means well, sorry. Since my opponent missed his land, that means obviously he doesn't have land and that there's no blue mana. But also that means I'm pretty far ahead now, being able to play Pack Leader with a Snakeskin Veil up. Now I even drew a third one. I can really protect against removal. So I'm gonna assume that this card here is Demon Bolt. So if he draws a land now, he'll still be able to kill my Pack Leader, which would, not be great. So, okay, no land again. This is really exciting. At the end of last match, I talked about how much you just want your opponent to not hit their land drops so you can get easy wins. And I get to get in with Pack Leader here. Toru is wisely holding on to removal because he knows I'll have a Snakeskin Veil. And now he fires off the Abrade. I get to go Snakeskin Veil. And let's see if it is indeed Demon Bolt in the foretell zone. He's definitely tanking here. So I guess he might be afraid of a second Snakeskin Veil, but at this point you can't let me attack with 2 Pack Leaders here, so you just have to go for it. Which is the beauty of how this draw lined up now. Because he's just forced to play any sort of interaction into me. And now, even if he hits a blue source, if he hits blue source and has Galvanic Iteration, it's not great. Okay, so it's Thundering Rebuke. I get to save my Pack Leader. And now, it's just easy street here. Gets to attack for 8. He didn't hit his land drop. I still have another Snakeskin Veil in hand. And as long as I, don't tap out or anything. I mean, even if I tap out, I could actually have, so much damage that it doesn't even matter. And if this is Demon Bolt, right? If this is Demon Bolt, and he draws a blue source and has Galvanic Iteration, that's the worst case scenario, right? I need to think about that. If that's what happens, and I play Mammoth and Sculptor, he's gonna kill this Werewolf Pack Leader and this Mammoth, and I'm gonna attack for lethal. Because I can pump this Pack Leader up to 7 power, and the Sculptor is gonna attack for 2. So actually, even if he has the worst case scenario, I still have lethal. So I'm just safe to play out my 2 things, and I know I've won the game at this point. I know that I have an invitation to the next set championship. That is so awesome. It is just exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I wanted to out of this tournament, to get that 10-5. No, I am pumped at this point, especially since I had to win the last 3 rounds to even get there. I mean, obviously, you know, that there's some luck here with like the last 2 rounds. My opponent did not play a 3rd land on turn 3, but or like the entire game actually. But even then, that's, you know, exactly like what you want to have happen when you're in these like super tense moments, because you're just like so spent and you can't really bear to have any more difficult games. And this game still had like a pretty crucial decision. I think with all the snakes and males, I still would have been able to navigate a win here, even if I play out my pack leader on turn 2, but it's not for sure. So I definitely do feel very good about myself at this point, and honestly, I'm feeling very good about myself for commenting on all 15 of my matches and posting them for you guys on YouTube. If you're the one person, I'm gonna guess it's one person who has watched all my videos from start to finish, I congratulate you. That's a well done feat. Please reach out to me if you do, because well done. That is a lot of work it has taken on my end to put all of this up, and I'm hoping that at least, you know, it's so much information, right? So I assume that most people won't have watched everything, but even if people just watch some of it and learn a thing or two, you know, the spike field hazard interaction, how to play around like divide by 0, you know, the sideboard plans, like why we're doing the things we're doing. Also, like with my historic deck, of course, there's also a whole lot of things, right? You know, an interesting place with a deck that seems like it has not much play to it. So I'm really hoping that these videos will let you know that even though I'm playing simple green decks with full of creatures, they're actually not so simple, because Magic is still Magic and it's still really hard, and you still have a ton of wiggle room and decision making. So all in all, yeah, just thank you for watching, and I am so pumped to be qualified for the next for the next set championship. Like honestly, I can't tell you guys how much that actually means, because the last 2 like I played the Zendikar Championship and the Kaldheim Championship. Both of them qualified through arena qualifiers, and I didn't do well in either of those. Well, actually in Kaldheim Championship, I lost the last round for the requalification, right? And in that one, I was also like on a winning streak in the last round, and then lost the last one. And then I didn't qualify for the Strixhaven Championship because I lost 2 PDQ finals to try and qualify for it. So I was just left like out in the dark. I didn't get to play the Challenger Gauntlet, like a lot of my teammates who did well in like these events, and it just like, you know, it made me feel a bit like, you know, left out here, because you know, because this team I'm on here is just amazing, and we got like, you know, Arne Huschenbetz, Sam Rolfe, David Inglis, Matti Quisma, and a bunch of other people. But these were the people in the Challenger Gauntlet that I'm specifically mentioning, that I was like enviously looking at. We're just like playing a bunch of like really solid Magic, and it's so fun to be able to prepare for these events together. And when I won the SCG with this mono green deck to qualify for this event, like that already meant a ton to me, and I just really want to keep playing these events. So like that's why, you know, this win right here, you know, getting like these 10 match wins, which like that's just not easy. You know, you play like any an open field tournament where like, you know, everyone can come play, and you're a decent solid player, like going 10-5, like 66% win rate, that's not that hard. Like you'll definitely, you know, do that and feel okay about your tournament. It's like, you know, if you go 10-5 at a Grand Prix, you know, like, well, you get probably no prize money and 1 pro point is what you used to get. And it's kind of like, you know, a good to middling finish, depending on like, you know, how good you are and how used you are to success. But at this level, where it's 250 players, everyone had to qualify. Everyone is like good, at least at some level. And some people are great in this tournament, and the density of great players is a lot higher. And it's 2 different formats, and a lot of people are like putting a lot of time into preparing for this. I know my opponent here was on the Japanese team that also, just like our team, just spent hours and hours just coming up with some very solid deck lists for standard and historic, and good plans for how to play them. And when you have to like battle against these players, you can't just like go in unprepared. Like, you also have to practice and train, and not only that, but you also have to perform in the games. You have to be like on your like doing your best. So I'm really happy with this 10-5 is what I'm trying to say. And it's funny now that I'm, you know, I really wanted to like post these videos to kind of brag about how well I played, because I really felt good about this tournament. And yeah, especially like this last match here, I think that one was really good. I think that was some really solid magic. And you know, maybe it didn't really matter. Like, maybe I could have played a lot worse and still won, especially like this last game, for instance. But it's kind of beside the point, because you know what I'm really always for is just like playing like these, you know, like just striving to play as optimally as possible, trying to get as good as possible, and then hopefully the results will come with that. So I was really hoping to like show off how well I played, but in reality, I'm rewatching these games and I'm seeing so many mistakes left and right, like in all these matches here, and like seeing matches where I could have won if I just did this thing differently, or like these two things differently. And that's just awesome, right? To know that there's still like so much potential in me. And honestly, this experience of recording all these matches, it's taking me 2 weeks to record these videos, guys. Like 2 weeks, it's so much. Obviously not like all I've done, right? But it's a lot of hours of work. Because to make this video, right, you know, first of all, I made thumbnails for all the videos for the first time, actually taking that serious. And then I had to like find a good setup for like how to record the videos and so on. Then I'm watching, like before I record a video, I watch the match through first, because it's been a while since I played them, so I need to like know what's going on. And then I, you know, rewatch it while recording my commentary, and then I upload it to YouTube. So it's like some of these videos are an hour long, which meant I spent like probably 2 hours on them, probably 3. Like it's kind of a lot of work. And anyway, it's actually been like a really rewarding process in that I've, you know, like gotten to see, you know, really analyze and scrutinize my own plays, and just in general, like the ability to record your own games is just a really nice tool for getting better. Analyzing your own games, cannot recommend it enough. I've definitely been thinking that when you're preparing for a tournament, instead of like, if you have time to play 30 matches, just play 20 matches and then record them and review them in double speed. You'll get much more than you do from like playing 10 more, like the 21st or 30th match, as if you just review the first 20. Or even better, you play some, you review, you play some more, you review that. So you like gradually get better. So you don't like make mistakes in the first few matches that you don't discover, and still make in a 10th match where you could have actually prevented that. So anyway, if you're someone with not a lot of time preparing for tournaments, this is my tip for you. If you want more tips from me and my blabbering, speed-talking mouth, I am available for coaching. I love to analyze these games and help people with what they have trouble with in games, and help them like, you know, see lines they might not normally know, or like figure out how to play a deck more optimally. I've played this game for like 10 years. Yeah, I've played this game for 10 years now, which in itself is not really an endorsement, but a lot of this has been like very competitive play as well. Like just almost from the get-go, I was like trying to shoot for the competitive scene, trying to play on the Pro Tour, and I've learned a lot over these years, like so much. And even though like I'm definitely not still there, I have so much more to learn. I can also recognize that, yeah, I definitely like have, you know, a lot more understanding than what I started. And I love teaching, and I love passing on that understanding to other people. That's why I make these videos, and that is why I do coaching. So check out the link in my description if you're interested in that. And otherwise, well, I mean, look forward to another set of matches from the Neon Dynasty Championship, which I am now qualified for. Thank you for watching, and bye.